The Big Issue. Breaking down the issues that matter.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Leadership Podcast. It's another edition of The Big Issue. And of course, we are actually behind time. Without taking much of a time, we'll go into the big issue of the day, which is issues as APC grapples with kickoff of 2023 presidential campaign. As usual, I'm your regular host. My name is George Agba, and of course, with me here in the studio is our in-house analyst, a political analyst, Chibuzo Okaibe.
Thank you, Mr. Joe.
Well, public outcry trailed the list of the Presidential Campaign Council of the Governing All Progressive Congress, released penultimate Friday by Secretary of the Council, Hon James Faleke. Governors elected under the platform of the party and the party's National Working Committee cried foul that they were not carried along in the composition of the list. This led to the suspension of the inauguration of the campaign council last week. Director General of the campaign council and Plateau State Governor Simon Lalong issued a statement saying the inauguration, which was supposed to herald the campaigns with a special prayer session and a roadwalk, had been suspended indefinitely. That had sparked the speculation that all is not well with the governing party. And it started playing out when we started seeing series of meetings between the governors, the campaign council, and just yesterday, the governors and some members of the campaign council met with the leadership of the party at its national secretariat in Wusechu. And the outcome of the meeting was that the list must be readjusted. The APC governors accused the campaign council of usurping the role of the party's leadership on grounds that it ought not to have released a list of a campaign council which they are members of. So you see what is playing out in the governing party. And of course, it's a way of politics anyway. There will always be issues.
Of course.
But let's look at some of these issues because I think the governing party is running against time when it has to do with the campaigns. And of course, we know that the governing party ought to have set the pace for this campaign before others follow suit. But it's still lagging behind. Just like the APC governor said, it was the campaign council in the position to release a list in which they are members, even when they had not been inaugurated.
Thank you, George. First of all, I think the background has to be laid as to what it is and how it is. Most parties have done. I don't know the inner workings of the APC. Perhaps they have a different pattern as to how they're supposed to go about it. But ideally, at this point, immediately a candidate emerges, because in the build-up to the primaries, every candidate had his own campaign structure in the build-up to the primaries. Immediately, you become a candidate. Immediately, an aspirant becomes a candidate. All of your structure is supposed to be subsumed into the party. The party takes full control of the candidate's campaign machinery. So it's amazing that it took APC a long time to really harness these issues. No doubt, some of these things are bound to happen because we'll be dealing with conflicting interests along lines of persons trying to position themselves within the larger structure so that when the party wins, they have a better foothold in the administration. So it's expected that you have this kind of schemings and push and all of that. But I think the focus is on how long it took the party to align those interests, and it is truly worrying if it could take them this long to resolve so because the primaries ended when in June. It's just like what we are talking about the PDP. Your primaries ended as far back as May, and they are still having and so it also plays out with the APC. Your primaries ended that far back, and you are still having issues trying to sort out. So it tells so much about how our party system and structure and the failings of people to harmonize their interests within the larger picture on the one hand, and the failure of the party as an institution to harmonize these interests and ensure that they hit the ground running when it is necessary. Unfortunately, now the party seems to have been distracted from what it ought to be doing, because this is more than 7 days after the flag off of the campaign. Many would have thought that the party would have hit the ground running. And like as you did point out, this is the ruling party. It is expected that they ought to set the pace, and to lead the way the campaign should go. But as we speak, they seem to be far on the back foot. As we speak, there's still talks about whether the candidate is going to arrive anytime soon or not. This is before now. There was a talk about whether he is healthy or not, and we saw all sorts of pictures everywhere trying to prove that he's okay. Even though those pictures now have been seen as
being contested seriously. Some say it's an old picture.
These are old pictures.
They are old pictures,
so
and
this gives another fillip to thinking within some quarters that perhaps all of the crises we are seeing, all of the misunderstandings we are seeing within the APC might be a ploy to buy time
and then drag the whole
process so that when it comes, they keep things going. But whichever theory or whatever conspiracy theory, right? Yes, that is being put out as to the heart or the cause of this problem. One thing is clear: the optics is definitely not good for a ruling party that wants to project its capacity to continue to manage the affairs of Nigeria.
And one thing about the ruling party, Chibuzo, is that they are always thinking that they can wrap their internal wranglings, they can shroud it in secrecy, not knowing that the saying that nothing is hidden under the sun is real in most cases. While all this were going on, the party had been living in self-denial that no, we are in order, everything is well, until a little later came out, purportedly written by the national chairman, Adamu, asking the campaign council to reverse the composition of, and of course that was when we began to know that there must be a contest between the party leadership and then the secretariat. Of course, we know very well that ordinarily the party leadership ought to have been the one that would have been taking charge of, and under maybe the council of some of those people who think that they are stakeholders. But most Nigerians are beginning to say, from what they are saying now, this is exactly how, if the presidential candidate of the party happens to emerge, that is how they will not turn Nigeria into their own personal franchise, where they take decisions with no recourse to rule of law and the constitution. Does this campaign, this saga in the governing party, considering the role played by the council, which was not, because the idea is that a council that was supposed to be inaugurated last Wednesday, meaning that you had not even started. You are the ones releasing list of yourself. That has generated fears. Most Nigerians say this is exactly what we are going to start seeing by the time Tinubu emerges president. This is how it will work. It will not be a mafia show where people within will be the ones calling the shots without regards for constituted authorities and the rest. Do you see that relating to that?
Well, in any case, the concept of a cabal, in quotes, or an inner caucus or an inner circle will always be there. And I can almost say it is inevitable. If you look at Nigeria's, at least since 1999, there are always people within the circle that, in the presidency that determine, and, such people are usually at those who are very close to the the main man, the president, as we would say. So it might not be totally wrong for people to think that way. If not, we won't be seeing the kind of intense contestation, we are subtle contestation, however intensities, that we are seeing around this list. Because on some, we'll just assume is what's the force about a list, for people who want to, after all, I might not necessarily be in the list, but I can still function and ensure my party wins. So what is the force about it? Can't I be somewhere and do my thing since I have an ideological love, or I'm ideologically linked to my party? Why should my name be anywhere for them to know that I'm working for the party? But it shows you that so the fact that they want their names to be reflected in a list shows you that the notion of, okay, when we get into the presidency, perhaps we begin to mark those who worked for us. Gives really to why this agitation is quite intense for people to be identified with what is going on by virtue of their names being written down. So it has become part of our political culture. Whether it has been helpful or not is a different matter, because at the end of the day, it does not necessarily testify to whether it has helped in ensuring better policies or better programs, or even holding government to account internally as a party structure to ensure that the things we campaign for are realized. It's just a case of personal interest, and the pursuit of what they think they can get from a government in power. So they want to establish whatever they have done, or they were able to contribute going into into office. So I think it's something the political system has to really reassess, because indeed this is how it starts. The concept of sycophancy and the concept of trying to put self above national interest.
Yes. Well, thank you, Chibuzo. But at the end of the day, why we will agree with the NWC that yes, the action of the campaign council was wrong, because at the end of the day, just like you rightly say, after emerging candidates, an aspirant ought to have collapsed all its structure to the party and then allow the party to take charge. Since as a candidate, is a candidate under the platform of that party. Yes, so we agree with the NWC that yes, the campaign council usurped its duties and started acting as if it was already inaugurated when there was no campaign council in place, except they were just named people that you have been appointed this, you have been appointed this. But the governors, the APC governors, is what I don't understand. They have their state as chief executives and they have their own campaigns in the states, because the 2023 elections will involve electing governors. But the governors too were aggrieved. They were angry over the situation, and not just because of what the campaign council did to the party's leadership. Their own interest too, they say, was not carried along. And some of the names they nominated were not included. Why would governors begin to insist on their names being included in the presidential campaign council, whereas they have their own campaigns in their state to manage?
Well, perhaps it's for ego purposes, alongside the reasons we advanced.
Just to say, even at the national level, I have a stake.
So And perhaps it's also rooted in practice. It has been the practice even before APC became ruling party. As we speak, even in PDP, their campaign council, if you watch from after the first couple of names, the other names you see there are governors. First. Then you come to former governors, and it goes down like that. But again, it helps for a show of strength. It probably has its uses to show of strength, show of if I have to play the devil's advocate, just for show of strength, and that the governors are all behind the candidate, and that they are ready to support him and all of that, But of course, we all know, like I did point earlier, the underlining thing could be, okay, let them see how much I contributed to this, so that when the time comes, they will not say I didn't do.
They'll carry me along at the national level.
At the end of it all, if these things were as rooted in a desire to help the system work, we ought to be seeing some level of engagements intra-party wise. Haven't contributed this much to make this party work. If things are not going right in the party, I should be able to say no. This is a party, and these are manifesto. We should be disagreeing on the level of manifesto and performance and implementation of our programs. But we don't get to see that immediately the president or whoever emerges, everybody goes back and begins to do praise singing. With the hope that they will continue to take a shine on them for the things they contributed to the party.
Well, Adamu also yesterday elected national chairman of the APC, Abdullah Adamu, probably because the governors have filed behind the NWC, the party leadership, against the campaign council. At the meeting, which lasted for over 5 hours at the National Secretariat, Adamu said governors are the ones that can determine elections. He said governors are so powerful that at the end of the day, without them, they cannot win elections. That speaks volume of this same belief that whatever happens in the election can be controlled by incumbency. And with the 2023 elections coming, and INEC, President Buhari, talking about free, fair elections, should we still agree with Adamu that if election must be free and fair, the governors are so powerful to determine who emerges as president of this country?
If elections will be free and fair.
Yes, if the governors.
If elections will be free and fair, it will be up to the INEC, really, because they will be the umpires. As for governors, they will play along partisan lines. So they might not be the best people or the best set of people to determine a free and fair process. It has to be INEC and the security, guys who would ensure that people play by the rule. In fact, the umpire will be the ones to ensure we have free and fair elections
and that the vote counts.
Exactly. But as to the influence of governors in helping their party win, of course, it goes without saying. We've seen it play out a number of times when they are so overwhelmingly powerful in states. As of today's Nigeria, we know how influential a governor can be because they control a lot of resources. And in an election where you have a ruling party as a governor and you have all of the local governments managed by that same party, most of the people in the state assembly in the same party, and the governor as the head, you can be sure that wherever it tells them to go is the area they are going to go. And these are people who have downlines, so they are going to impress on their people in the state constituencies, the various constituencies and wards, that this is the direction we have to go. We are still at that point in our political evolution and political awareness where it is really difficult for people to, how do I put it now, to take a different direction. Of course, we've seen exceptions. We've seen it happen, in some states. We recently saw it in Osun and all of that. But, we are beginning to. It takes a very, very popular opposition candidate, to really turn that tide. But it doesn't take away the fact that governors are that influential, in their states, and measurably can influence the way people vote because they have a lot of people they control under them.
Yes, finally, let's begin to look at the other situation, which actually makes me remember those days when we were kids and television was something
It was a luxury.
And we will begin to look at the kind of films they will, like NTA, they will always promote the films that you'll be expected to watch at night. And one of such films that was an action was this film they call Missing in Action, Chuck Norris. And from the title of that film, most people have come to start using it in relation to somebody who suddenly disappears and you don't see him. Just like the presidential candidate of the APC, Tinubu, who took off. And at the end of the day, most Nigerians are wondering whether the reason given by APC for Tinubu's sojourn out of the country at this critical moment could be true or not. That at this critical point, where everything centers around you, and everything they do, we hear of campaign council, the tussle in the party, all borders on just one thing: how to sell their candidate. And you, the candidate, ought to be around to see how far you bring people, unite people, and try to make you take off. You are not in the country, and at the end of the day, they say no, that you are consulting outside the country. Now, although they have been talking of Nigerians in diaspora being given the right to vote, though that has not been legalized. So why would a presidential candidate leave the country, take off to outside and be consulting from outside? What has the outside got to do with the inside, where the whole action should be? And the funniest thing, just like you rightly said earlier, we need to see photos to prove that he's physically fit. He didn't go based on health grounds. He went there, and then it becomes funny. Just like you see, although he's not the first president, under Buhari, during Buhari in 2015, Buhari, who we always know with Babariga and the cap to match, all of a sudden appeared in suits. Sometimes you hear him wearing Igbo clothes to show that he's going to be a president for all. Tinubu appeared in suits to show that yes, he's physically fit. At a gym, you see him sitting down, riding a bicycle, and most people marking some of those items he was wearing to show that the whole picture was. And you don't blame Nigerians who begin to, Nigerians are very fond of playing with everything. And then they can turn anything political, economical into a joke. But let's look at the journey, the London trip. Was it necessary at this particular time? Just because it amounts to feeling like Rome while feeling like Nero while Rome was on fire.
But it is really intriguing and worrisome, perhaps for a number of APC people. I want to believe it.
And then let me cut you. Okay. After doing, even in the midst of all this, the only thing the campaign, the media managers of the campaign will say is to be comparing the candidate. Like yesterday, Kayamo was not given an insight. Why is it that whenever the PDP presidential candidate goes out of the country, nobody makes an issue? But it is only when it has to do with Tinubu that they will make a fuse out of it. And at the point, he said he doesn't know the whereabouts of a candidate that you are his spokesman in the campaign council. Those things too are very absurd.
Absolutely absurd. That is why a number of people have complained about this thing about, having the campaigns become an issue of, you said I didn't say, at the level of issues that ought not to have been an issue. Now, you can imagine the like you pointed out now, the APC spokesperson pointing to the PDP that why he also does the same. So why when we do, it becomes an issue. It's really sad that this is where we are at a time where we would expect that candidates will be showing, a clear direction as to what their manifestos are and how they are supposed to implement it and convince Nigerians on what they intend to do about their programs and manifestos. It's quite worrisome. And to think that we just had an experience not quite long ago with the incumbent president who had to be out of the country for a long time on health grounds. So you can understand why Nigerians are a bit apprehensive when the whole talk about this whole saga about the APC presidential candidate began. I empathize with the spokespersons really because I've seen Keyamo talk a few times on TV when this issue comes up, and it's really tough. It's really tough trying to explain and convince Nigerians that nothing is amiss. Even as of today, it was on a TV station, and this same issue. And every time he goes on TV, this is the issue. This is the issue. Nobody's talking about what the APC wants to do. This has become the issue, at least for now, until the president comes, until the presidential candidate comes. This is going to be the issue, and it's unfortunate. And it was asked today, have you spoken with the president? And he said no, that he spoke with the president's son, and that the president's son told him. The presidential candidate's son. And that the presidential candidate's son told him that the presidential candidate is fine. So this is where we are. As a spokesperson, this is where we are. An image maker, you can't talk to the principal directly. When you have this kind of situation, it reinforces a concern and a fear. Because like I just said, we are just coming out of an experience that took our president, out of public view for a good number of months on health grounds. So when these issues begin to play out the way they are playing out, it becomes a question for concern. However, I do think that he did say there's been talk about the presidential candidate returning, very soon. Very soon. I wonder how soon. And I think one even said 48 hours. 48 hours about today. There's a report that says he's returning today. So we will hope that he returns and that when he comes back, in sound health, so that we can at least hear from him and try to get his thought processes on how he intends to go about the manifesto, and perhaps help the party get some form of direction. Because it will seem like the party does not have a direction as to what it wants to do with regards. Perhaps if he was around, this whole misunderstanding, let me use that expression. Campaign list. We don't have dragged, even if it were there, probably wouldn't have dragged for this long. But perhaps let's hope that, as they have said, he's going to come today or maybe tomorrow. He does, so that we begin to hear from him clearly what he intends to do. Don't forget, let me put this in context. It is not the point. It is not lost on some people who are beginning to think perhaps he's beginning to find the pattern of putting himself in a position where he does not have to engage certain publics. Now, what do I mean? There was an NBA event, and all of the candidates were invited. He was conspicuously absent. His deputy had to represent him. Now, we are yet to see him make a presentation at the Lagos State Chamber of Commerce. Even last week at the signing of the peace pact. I'm coming there. At the signing of the peace thing, he was also missing in action, according to your analogy. So is it a pattern that we are going to see? Is it going to be a situation where when the time for presidential debates come, he probably will be missing in action, acting out the movie again. Missing in action, like you're trying to portray. But it is not a laughing matter because Nigeria is in a very precarious state. Yes, and they are very, very sensitive. Exactly. And very particular about who becomes the next president. Exactly. So it is important that the party finds a way. I don't know how they're going to do it to make their president available, their presidential candidate available, so Nigerians can hear and sound him out
And
on what he
identify
wants
with
to,
him.
exactly what he wants to do for the Nigerian people. Enough with all of the videos and all of the pictures that we are seeing, which has further compounded the situation, because it appears as if there's a scramble and a struggle to really prove a point. And when somebody begins to overdo a thing and begins to put old pictures, and these things are being punctured by the day. Any video they put out is punctured, and they now bring out something else again, which is also stale, to project a current state of things. Then it shows you something is amiss. That's the only thing that that kind of thing can communicate. So I do think that in the interest of what Nigeria faces, the party should begin to get its act together as a ruling party and tell Nigerians what they want to do and make their presidential candidate available for Nigerians to see.
Well, thank you very much, Chibuzo. That was very apt. And of course, the good thing is that Leadership Podcast is not just a local platform, it's a global platform. And I know very well that he will stumble into whatever has been said there online, so that we too can tell him here that he should better come back and face the Nigerian public and let them understand why he wants to become their president. And stop riding bicycles. Because just like what somebody said on social media, he said, look, now he's riding bicycle there. If they had asked him to come and do the bicycle competition here, he would have sent his deputy to go and represent him in the competition. Well, there is a nexus of understanding here on the big issue. And that nexus is that Nigerians are tired of internal wranglings of political party. And what they want to hear is what the parties and their candidates have to offer to Nigerians to enable them make their choice of who they want to become their next president. And of course, I'll thank our in-house analyst, Chibuzo, for actually addressing the big issue. And of course, our viewers outside, I'll thank you for keeping tab with us. And of course, our technical crew here in the studio for actually making this program a smooth sailing one for us to go. Join us same time tomorrow for another edition of The Big Issue. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.